Good day. Today we're going to have a look at a polynomial being divided by a monomial. And before we start, let's just discuss a little bit the language of mathematics, because as I've said before, if you don't understand the terminology, it's very difficult to follow what somebody's explaining. So this all has to do with algebra and algebraic expressions. And we have a prefix here of poly, not meaning a parrot, and mono over there, which means one. So poly means many. So we're speaking about expressions here that have got many terms in them. So we get special types of polynomials, like a binomial, and the prefix bi means two, so that would have two terms. We get trinomials, prefix of tri means three, so we have three terms. And then, of course, you get expressions with many terms in them. And then mono meaning one, so we've been told that we've got a polynomial being divided by a one term, a single term. So what we need to do first is that we need to show that every single term in the numerator is being divided by that denominator. So we break it up first and we rewrite everything, except in this case we're going to now show that every single term is over 2x. So we just need to set that up first. All right, and now that we've done that, we're going to do what we've been doing in previous videos, and we're just going to deal with each of these terms individually, applying the rules of exponents, working with the coefficients as well. And everything that I'm doing in orange pen is something that many of you will just do in your heads and write down the answer. Those of you who tend to make careless mistakes or are still a little bit unsure about the rules of exponents and how to work with fractions, it is helpful then to say 2 goes into itself once and 2 goes into 8 4 times. Or you simply saying 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. And then we need to look at, we've got two variables, both the variable x, the base is x. So we know that if we're dividing, we need to subtract the exponents. Remember, if there is no exponent, then it's automatically a 1. So we're saying x to the 3 minus 1, which is x squared. So that term has now been simplified down to the simplest form that you can get it into. Here we can just say 2 goes into 6 3 times, and then x squared divided by x to the power of 1 will be x to the 2 minus 1, which is 1, and I don't need to write it in. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and then remember, when you've got two things, something being divided by exactly the same thing, you can actually regard them as cancelling each other out, because x to the 1 divided by x to the 1 is x to the 1 minus 1, which is x to the 0, which equals 1, and it would be silly to write here 5 times 1, because 5 times 1 is simply 5. And now we've got 2 dividing into 4 twice, and because this x in the denominator is not affected by any x in the numerator because there isn't one, be careful and make sure that that x does remain in the denominator. You can't just bring it up to the numerator. And we now have 4 terms in a much simpler form because each of them has been divided individually by the denominator that we were given. Let's have a look at something a little bit more interesting, and that is where our denominator is now a negative value. So this means that we've got to work out one extra thing to start with. We need to consider the sign. So remember that if there's no sign in front of a term, it means that that term is positive. So I'm going to work out the signs of each term right up front before I start worrying about anything else. And I'm going to do that by saying positive divided by negative is negative. So this overall fraction that I'm going to write now will be negative. And again, I'm simply going to write down what I've got in the numerator and put it over the denominator. Don't be worrying about this negative sign here because it's been sorted out already. We've said positive divided by negative, the overall fraction is negative. So before I go on to write my second fraction, I have to say negative divided by negative is positive, and then simply write down what you've got. We'll process it all in the next step. And then again, this one is positive, so positive divided by negative is negative. And then simply write down. Don't try to work anything else out in this step. You're simply making sure that you're writing down each individual term over the denominator. Okay, and now we're ready to process and to try to simplify. So this is negative. I've already worked that out. Here it might be helpful to do 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 12 3 times, because that's going to stress to you that the 3 is in the denominator. People so often know that there's a 3, but they put it in the numerator by mistake. M cubed divided by m cubed, remember, they're coming out to be 1, so they basically disappear. And then going back to my hack on how to deal with alleviating having to work with negative exponents. Remember, we say, is this top or bottom heavy? It's bottom heavy, so I know that it's going to end up in the bottom. I've already got a 3 in the denominator. I'm going to have an n in the denominator. And what's the difference between 2 and 3? It's 1. I'm not going to write the 1 in because we don't do that. And now I really have to look at what's left over at the top. 4 went into itself once, so I need to show that so that I see what's left in the numerator. Plus 3 goes into itself once, 3 goes into 12, 4 times. So again, I've got a 4 in the denominator. M squared divided by m cubed, it's bottom heavy, so the answer is going to be at the bottom, and the difference is 1. N squared divided by n cubed, same story, and it's going to be n to the power of 1. And once again, the only thing that's left in the numerator is the 1 from where I divided by 3. Minus. Right, now I've got 12 cannot divide into 18 exactly, so I'm going to need to look for a highest common factor, and the highest number that will go into both of those is 6. 6 into 12 goes twice, and 6 into 18 goes 3 times. So now I see that I have a number in the numerator and a number in the denominator. And then going on to deal with my variables, m squared, m cubed, it's bottom heavy, so the m is going to be in the denominator, and the difference between 2 and 3 is 1. N cubed divided by n cubed, we know what happens with that. So that is all that I'm left with in my third term, and even though it looks a little unusual with so much in the denominators and so little in the numerators, everything is fine, and that is your final answer.